Hi, welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about angles and parallel lines. In the last video, we spoke about angle relationships inside a parallel line, inside just lines in general, and we were able to identify alternate interior angles, alternate exterior. We were able to identify what they were based on the picture. Today, we're going to take it one step further. All right. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and like this video and subscribe if you haven't done so. Let's get right to it. So here on the left, this is what we did on a previous video. Identify the angle relationships. So hopefully by now we've done some practice and we feel comfortable saying that 1 and 7 are alternate exterior angles. 3 and 5 are alternate interior angles, and all of those relationships. So what we're going to do today is we're taking these angles and we're going to find some specific restrictions. We're going to say, let's change this picture and formulate so that these two lines are now parallel. Specific angle relationships will come from the fact that these two lines are parallel. So here we have line L and line M. We know they're parallel because of this double arrow notation. Whenever you see double arrow notation, you know that these lines are parallel. And that's really the premise of this video. If the lines are parallel, what do we know about angle relationships like alternate exterior angles? What do we know about alternate interior angles? What do we know about corresponding angles? Okay, so now we're moving forward with just parallel lines. If the lines are parallel, what do I know about these types of relationships? So let's talk about them. Let's talk about these first three on the left. Okay, alternate interior angles. So one example of an alternate interior angle here is 4 and 6. We also have 3 and 5. They're alternate interior, they're opposite sides, and they're on the inside of these two lines. When these are parallel, the relationship is this. We can say that they are congruent. So angle 4 is congruent. That's the congruent symbol. The angle 6. Or I can say angle 3 is congruent to angle 5. Or congruent, if you know, is that they're the same. Alternate exterior angles. Here, as an alternate exterior angles, I have two options. 1 and 7 or 2 and 8. They're opposite and they're on the outside of the two lines. So 1 and 7, when we're dealing with parallel lines, are also congruent. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 7. And then in this scenario as well, we have corresponding angles. Angles like 2 and 6 or 3 and 7, right? Angles that are on the same side of the blue line and on the same side of the two lines. So they're either above the two lines or below the two lines. I'm going to go with the example of 1 and 5 as corresponding. So these two angles are corresponding and they're also going to be congruent. If you notice, they're both above the lines and they open up the same amount. These are obtuse angles and they are congruent to each other. So all corresponding angles are congruent. And I'm just going to write one example. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 5. You can choose any pair of these types of angles in here, and they're all going to be the same degree measurement. Okay, let's talk about a different situation. Here we have two other situations, consecutive interior and consecutive exterior. Now we're dealing with angles that are on the same side and inside, right? So angles 3 and 6 here are consecutive interior angles, and 4 and 5 are also consecutive interior angles. In this situation, when the lines are parallel, these two angles are not congruent. These two angles are supplementary, which means they add up to 180 degrees. So I can say angle 3 plus angle 6 add up to 180 degrees. That is a relationship between them. Consecutive exterior angles, like 2 and 7 or 1 and 8, are also going to be supplementary. So we can set up an equation similarly to say angle 1 plus angle 7 also adds up to 180 degrees. okay? So these angle relationships that we're talking about relate to the lines being parallel. If the lines are parallel, then they will follow these 5 rules. Consecutive interior and consecutive exterior add up to 180, while the other relationships equal to each other. So let's do a couple of examples to show you how we would set up a problem to solve in this situation, okay? If you have a paper and pencil, I would take that out now so we can write it down and you can solve it with me. The first thing that I want to do is identify the situation. In this picture, I have 2 angles, and they're both inside. These angles are consecutive interior angles. Now, because these lines are parallel, L is parallel to M, because they're parallel, these 2 angles have a specific relationship. Consecutive interior angles are supplementary, which means that these 2 angles inside add up to 180 degrees. And that's how you set up your equation. Okay, so first you identify what relationship am I dealing with. They're consecutive interior. Then I look at my set of rules. Consecutive interior angles are supplementary when the lines are parallel. So we set up our problem. 2x plus 6, this first angle, plus the second angle are supplementary, or add up to 180 degrees. Now that we set up an equation, we can go ahead and find the value of x. We start combining like terms and isolating the variable. So as I'm solving this problem, on the left I can combine the 6 and the 130. I have 2x plus 136, right? 6 plus 130 is 136. On the right I still have the 180. To solve for x, I need to get rid of the 136. Since we're adding 136, the inverse is subtraction. So I subtract on both sides. I'm left with 2x equals 180 minus 36 is 44. Lastly, to solve for x, since we're multiplying 2 times x, the inverse is to divide both sides by 2. And we're left with x equals 22. So the important thing here as you're solving or finding the value of x is first, identify the angle relationship. How are these angles related? They're consecutive interior angles. Now, what do I know about consecutive interior angles? They add up to 180 because the lines are parallel. So we set up our equation, and from there we just solve. Let's try another example. Here we also have lines being parallel. L is parallel to M. How are these 2 angles related? These x values are opposite of each other, and they're both on the outside. These are alternate exterior angles. What do you know about alternate exterior angles when the lines are parallel? They are congruent. Since they're congruent, that means that they are equal to each other. They're the same. So to set up the equation, you would say 3x plus 10 3x plus 10 is the same or equal to the other angle. So you set them equal to each other. Notice how here we're not adding the 180. These are not supplementary angles. These angles are congruent. So we make them equal. And now we just combine like terms and solve for x. Let's put all the x's on one side. I'm going to move the 3x first to the right side. So since it's a positive 3x on the left, I'm going to subtract 3x on both sides. On the left, the x's cancel. You're left with 10 equals 4x minus 3x is just 1x minus 10. Since I'm solving for x, I gotta now move this 10 to the other side. I need to leave x alone, so I gotta get rid of this negative 10. So to move it over, I do the opposite. If it's a minus 10, I do plus 10 on both sides. So I'm left with 1x, or just x, equals 20. Okay, again, first identify what do I have here? What's the angle relationship between the 2 values I'm interested in? And then decide, are they equal to each other or do they add up to 180? Which relationship is it? Okay, so in the next few examples, I'm just going to set them up for you. We're not going to go ahead and solve a lot of examples, but I will give you multiple scenarios where we identify the angle relationship and we set up the problem. And then you, if you want, you can continue going through the examples and solving them yourself. If you can set up the problem, then you have most likely at least 60 to 70% of the problem done. So let's begin here. With this first example, these two angles are on the inside. They're called consecutive interior angles. Consecutive interior angles, when these lines are parallel, consecutive interior angles add up to 180. So the way that I set up this problem is I say the first angle plus the second angle has to equal 180. And then I combine like terms and I solve for x. In this other situation, these angles are alternate interior angles. Alternate interior angles are equal to each other. They're congruent. So when I set up my problem, I say 6x plus 4 must equal the other angle, 8x minus 8. In this situation, they are congruent, and in this situation, they add up to 180. From there, you just combine like terms and solve for x on both situations. Let's try these two. Feel free to pause this video and set them up yourself and see if you get the same answer. So, what do we have? These two angles are alternate exterior angles. Alternate exterior angles are also congruent. So when I'm setting up my problem, I say the first angle, x plus 6, must then be the same as the other angle, 4x. And I solve for x. On the second example, we have consecutive exterior angles. Okay? Consecutive exterior angles are supplementary. So that means that the angles should add up, the first angle plus the second angle should add up to 180 degrees. Let me correct my handwriting here a little bit. Okay? They add up to 180. And then you solve for x. Notice how the first thing you want to be able to do is identify the angle relationship. So if you're struggling with identifying whether it's alternate interior, alternate exterior, consecutive interior, corresponding, if you're struggling with that, go watch the other video that I posted here on 3.1, okay? Identifying the relationships. Then this video 3.2 will help you how to set up the equation to solve them. Finally, let's do one more example. Here, this example is from your assignment on Schoology, okay? So I'm going to start doing this more often where I at least give you one problem from the assignment to show you how it's done to solve and set up the problem. Okay, so let's check this out. I'm going to make some space here to solve for both of them. The first thing that I'm going to do is I notice that I have x and y. So here I'm going to solve for x and find the value of y. So I have two situations. Look first at the x values. How are these angles related? The ones with the x's are alternate interior angles. Alternate interior angles are congruent. They're the same. So I'm going to set up an equation just for the x's. I know that the first angle, 8x minus 10, is the same as the other angle, 7x. And I'm going to solve for x. So I'm going to move the x's to the same side. I'm going to move this 8x to the other side so that the x's are together. Since it's a positive 8x, to move it over, I do the opposite, negative 8x. We cancel here on the left, and you're left with negative 10 equals 7 minus 8, negative 1x. To get rid of the negative 1, since we're multiplying negative 1 times x, the inverse is to divide by negative 1. So opposite of multiplying is dividing. I left with x equals positive 10. So I find the value of x. Yes, we got one done. Now to find the value of y. How do we do that? Well, we can do two different things. I can plug in my answer in here or in here to find one of the angle measures. If I plug it in, right, I'm going to end up getting If I plug it into this top one, right, 8x minus 10, I'm going to do 8 times x, which is 8 times 10 minus 10. So this is what I get. 8 times x, my answer that I just got, minus 10. 8 times 10 is 80. 80 minus 10 is 70. So this angle right here is 70 degrees. Now, if you plug it in over here, what's 7 times x? 7 times 10 is also 70. And it should work out, right? We just said that these two angles were the same. And we did. We got 70 here, 70 here. Now, to find the value of y, we can do this two different ways. I'm going to change colors here to sort of help you identify what we're looking at. This angle here is 70 degrees. This angle is 70 degrees. I'm going to draw the picture again with this being redrawn. Now I have 70 here and 70 here. And down here I have 6y plus 20. Okay? The first thing that I want to do is decide which angle do I want to connect or look at. These two angles are consecutive interior angles. Okay? So if I'm looking at these two right here, together they should add up to 180 degrees. And I can set up my equation like that. I can say 6y plus 20 plus the other angle should equal 180 degrees. Okay? Now, I could also use this other angle down here. These two. Together, they form a line. They're a linear pair. Okay, we spoke about linear pairs before. Angles that are adjacent and form a line also add up to 180. So you could also say 6y plus 20 plus 70 equals 180. So see how the equation doesn't change? You can add these two to 180 because they're consecutive interior, or you can add these two to 180 because they're a linear pair. The formula does not change. You're going to get the same solution. So as I'm solving for this, I'm going to combine everything on the left first. I can combine these two together. I have 6y plus 90 equals 180. To get rid of the 90, I subtract 90 on both sides. I'm left with 6y equals 90. To get rid of the 6, since you're multiplying 6 times y, the inverse is to divide both sides by 6. And you're left with y equals 15. Okay? So we found the value of x, we found the value of y. What did we do first? We started by figuring out the angle for relationship for x. Once we found the value of x, we plugged it back in, redrew our picture with it simplified. This is our original picture with angles instead of the x's. And then we decided, how do I set up an equation for y? Well, these two are related, and these two are related. And it doesn't matter which one you choose, because together, they still add up to 180. So, in essence, figure out the relationship. Do they add up to 180, or are they equal to each other? Set up your equation and solve. If this has helped you, please click the like button. That way I know that this video is helping you. If you haven't subscribed, please continue to click subscribe here, follow for more videos. And as always, we'll calculate later.